Click the wrong button. Hi, everybody. This is Zoph, and you are watching Simply SCAdian, no title required. I am on my own tonight. No Lucas. He's off doing super dad things. Just to remind you what Simply SCAdian, no title required is about is we talk to the people who are not peers, landed or court baron and baronesses. We want to talk to the regular folks in the SCA. I was tired of seeing, Duke blah blah was being interviewed and Countess blue blue. And I was like, what about the regular folk? They have just as much to add to the conversation as all these peers do. And that's how Simply SCAdian started. And we are in our third season, which is really awesome. I'm slowly working our way through our guests list, people that you have recommended to us to be guests. So just keep them coming. You can always send us a message. We're on Facebook at Simply SCAdian, no title required. Send me a message, or we also have a Google form that you can fill out. So without further ado, tonight's guest, this is a long one, so take a big breath. Alison Wodehalle got involved about 20 years ago and dove right in, serving as deputy herald for her group, mostly doing picture heraldry, but also learning about names. She got her start as a chatelaine by helping with demos and really loved the role. Alison became local chatelaine for 4 years and wrote several newcomer guides on topics like going to your first feast and camping in the SCA. She created pamphlets to give out at demos, and she held monthly newcomer meetings at her house. In the last 2 years of her time as local chatelaine, she became regional chatelaine and then stepped up to be kingdom chatelaine for 4 years. As kingdom chatelaine, she wrote the mission statement and the welcome newcomer blurb that is still on the EK Chatelaine website. She wrote policy after researching other kingdom chatelaine policies. Her predecessor had created the regional chatelaine positions, but the positions were not yet defined. Alison modeled them after the regional seneschal position, so there would be local contacts who were reading the reports and could be familiar to the local chatelaines. Alison still believes that chatelaine is the best office, as you get the honor of welcoming the future of the SCA. After stepping down, she worked with the polling deputy for the next 4 years, counting ballots for mostly baronial polls. This job was pretty interesting, learning which groups were changing status and selecting new coronets. Because there were occasionally pollings in Quebec, she reached out to French speakers to translate comments on these pollings. When her local group began considering the question of whether to change status to barony in 2018, Alison chaired the committee, did the research, contacted the kingdom level folks, and then worked with the Shire to make changes in the charter, in the officer roles, and to try to find ways for people to feel that their opinions count, that they are part of this group and have group ownership. When she became seneschal in 2020, just before the pandemic, she had loads of plans to bring together the different interest groups within her local group by having activities that wider populace might be interested in, such as garb making workshops and a monthly social. Since the pandemic changed all the plans, you poor thing, that anyone anywhere ever made, she started holding a weekly Zoom social, which has proved successful. In between all these officer roles, she autocrats or stewards events, running the Green Lane Demo, a popular weekend-long demo camping event for 5 years, Nova Scola 3 years, and Known World Arts and Sciences Symposium in 2018. She will be stewarding the EK Bardic Champs event in February 2023. Alison always thought of herself as an arts person, however, has loved sewing and costuming since childhood, and this is why the SCA is her tribe. No one she knows out in the modern world shares her passion for sewing, embroidery, or creating with fiber. She has taught many classes on how to make Gothic fitted dress and has held countless one-on-one sessions for ladies wanting to make that style dress, with a couple more requests still pending. I'm going to skip over some of this and go down to her primary persona is set in late 14th century in southeastern England, but she wanders a bit into 10th century Sweden, 15th century Mughal Empire, and maybe with a visit to ancient Rome. Alison just recently also became student, or are you protege?
Student.
Student to Rowan Cloteworthy. Da-da-da! You are such an awesome person. Like, that's so much, so much. So let's start out. Okay, we got to start out with the first question that we always ask everybody. How did you find the SCA?
So I heard about it a very, very long time ago when I was about 14 or 15 years old, which is a very long time ago. And what I heard was that there were these people that went camping, and they would like try to cook in pits and do things dressed like medieval people and stuff like that, and that they were having this great time. And then they returned to my aunt and uncle's campground, and they returned again and again and again. And they've been at Cooper's Lake for a very long time now. My aunt and uncle were Betty and Matt Cooper.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So my cousins are, Dave is gone now, but we've got Cindy, Kenny, and Judy and Alan still. And I camp right across from Alan's house.
Nice. So that was quite so was Penzic your first event?
No, it wasn't. They wouldn't have me at Penzic until I was like part of the SCA, because they weren't hosting anybody at that time of year. So it wasn't until I got a computer in my house that I was like, okay, got to find my local SCA. So that was in the late 90s. And then I was like, okay, here we go. Here's Hartsterndale.
Wow. So when we were talking before in the green room, as we call it, you mentioned that you've always lived in Hartshorndale. For everybody else who's not local to you, where exactly is that in the world?
So that's in the southern region of the East Kingdom, which is just west of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay. So let's talk about the role of chatelaine, which I agree with you. I think it's the most important job that anybody can do. What is it about that role that calls to you?
It's the helping people get started. It's the excitement. It's learning things all over again through their eyes. It's I don't know, there's just so much cool stuff. And I think one of the things that I had written as a mission statement to Chatelaines was that you are the person that's going to meet somebody who will eventually be king or queen. And that has actually happened. And I didn't even realize it until afterwards. We've got two people who've served as queen in the East, one of which was a Chatelaine, a local Chatelaine while I was Kingdom Chatelaine. Another one had been to a newcomer meeting at my house, which
Wow.
I thought was really super cool. When she told, I did not remember that she had been there, but she told me that, and I was like, wow, this is just amazing. This is exactly why this is cool. And it's just a very lucky job. You get to see people as they get started and whatnot.
So I'm grabbing my pen because I like to, here's the Zoph trick, by the way, when you're interviewing people, have a pad and a pen, pad of paper and a pen, so that as the questions come to me, I can write them down and then I let the question go. It's gone, it's written down, and then I can just listen to what you're saying and then I'll jot down another question. So, um, what what does the average newcomer, how do they hear about the SCA? Let's ask that question first.
Okay, so most people are doing some kind of browsing on the computer. Not everybody. There are some people that still find us through demos and whatnot, and word of mouth, certainly from friends. You go into work, you talk about it with your coworkers, and every now and again you find one person somewhere who's interested. But a lot of people who are interested are find us just browsing. They're looking for this or that or the other thing that has something to do with medieval stuff, and they come across us. So it's super important that our groups try to keep their websites newcomer friendly.
Yeah, we just had a problem where I'm at where somebody had emailed somebody in our local group and it just didn't go through. There was a problem with the way it was set up on our server and they were like, "I think you guys don't like me." And we're like, "No, we're sorry. There was a problem with the email. We'll fix it." So what, this is a really broad question, but we talk a lot about fighting in the SCA, and there's so much
Mhm.
more than fighting than the SCA. But how much does the fighting do to pull people into the SCA? Because it's pretty, it's shiny, it's banging and clanging, right? So talk to me about that.
So at demos, fighting is what pulls people over because they can hear it, and it's cool, and it's knights in armor, and it's something action based that people can come look at. There's certainly a number of newcomers that are interested in fighting. But I think a lot of people who come in are more interested in some kind of a craft of some sort. You'll get people who are interested in, for instance, what you're interested in, Bardic arts, or people who are interested in costuming, or people who are interested in weaving. Those are some of the things that you hear a lot about.
So,
Embroidery.
yeah, so I've noticed that in the SCA, we're very cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me right now that there's a lot of interest in weaving. The
Uh-huh.
fiber arts seem to be getting a lot of attention right now, which I find fascinating. So what is it about, because this is something that you're into as well, the fiber arts, correct?
Yeah, I don't do as much weaving, but yeah, fiber arts in general. Yep.
So what is it about that that has people so interested right now? What do you think?
I just think that so-called home arts eventually make their way back around again. I mean, I grew up when everybody was learning how to sew and you made your own Barbie doll clothes and stuff like that. And those sorts of things are just finding a resurgence. There's lots of little girls with little tiny embroidery kits. And I don't mean to be gender specific, but you do. I think that at Joann's stores, you tend to find the little girls doing things like that more so than the boys. But I think parents are more apt to give their boys an embroidery kit too. So I think you are seeing less of that being as gendered as it was,
Right,
also,
right.
which is good. Which is good. Yeah.
So talk to me about demos. I don't go to a lot of demos as a Bardic arts person. There's not much that I can do at demos, so I just tend to. Plus, I work a 9 to 5 and I have a kid, so I can't go to a lot of demos. So, what is it about demos that? How am I going to phrase this question? So, how do we do demos better, I guess is the question. How do you set up demos? How do you get what's your success? How do you get success with a demo?
I think your best bet, if you want to use a demo as a recruitment tool, because there's different ways of viewing demos. If you're using it as a recruitment tool, you need to target them. You need to go to places where like-minded people will be. Um, Bicale, the barony that's next door to my group, does a demo at PAX, which is a con, a gaming con. That's probably a good one to go to. There are other cons. There's a Star Wars group, the 501st, that goes to RetroCon, which is held within my boundaries of my local group. And we probably should set up a demo there. If Star Wars group is doing it, then why isn't SCA doing it? I think that would not be such a bad thing for us to target that one. We do a demo at the 4-H club, the local 4-H club, and we actually recently got somebody who's interested in playing with us from that. So that's cool. I think that there's other reasons to do demos though. And some of those reasons are things like just simply branding, putting us out there. Maybe somebody who sees us will tell their neighbor they saw us, and then maybe that neighbor will go, oh, well, I'm interested. So maybe we didn't meet that person at the demo, but maybe then they'll look us up. So there's that. There's also the concept of just, I don't know how to phrase this, unifying the group, having people within the group working together to do something that's kind of fun. And they enjoy that time together, and they're showing off the stuff that they love best about the SCA together. So there's that kind of unification of the group, or I don't know if that's the right word, but where it just kind of brings people within the group together who have different interests, like
Um,
fence fighters and fiber arts people all come together and enjoy a day doing things together.
um, and it's lost. See, I didn't write it down, so it's completely lost. My next brilliant question just left my brain. So let's talk about okay, so we're going to switch tacks because it'll come back to me later and I'll yell it out.
Okay.
You're in the process of creating a barony,
Oh yeah.
which is not something that is done very often anymore in the SCA. So, what has the process been like? Where do you even start? Like, did somebody just say, "Hey, we should be a barony"? Like, how does this happen?
And that's where it started. There's a lady in our group, Duchess Diana, and she one day said, hey, let's be a barony. And a couple of us were like, yeah, that's a cool idea. So somewhere along the line, I became the chairperson of that. And there was somebody else, but that person moved out of our group before they could get the ball rolling. And I said, well, I'll do it. So There was a lot of digging for information. Information in the SCA can be a little bit hard to figure out because you've got your local rules, your kingdom rules, your corpora, you've got the seneschal policies in the kingdom and in the society that also delineate rules that you have to follow. So you got to figure out where all the different rules are and what things apply and how to do it. So there's a whole bunch of things you have to put together. And we kind of put together the so-called packet pretty quickly and then realized that there were enough members of our group that were not totally on board with it that we kind of needed to back up and make some changes within the group that help make them feel more comfortable that we were able to support becoming a barony. And that had a lot to do with how our officers were selected. We had a lot of people in minor officer positions, but we couldn't guarantee that we were going to be able to keep the officers needed for a barony always filled. But we had a lot of like chamberlain and accessibility porter and minor offices like that filled. So we needed to look at that and try to go over that and fix that up within our charter. And we've gotten people very excited about it. We've started running a lot more events. We've just got a lot of excited people in our group at this point after 4 years of working on this.
So when will you have the elections for the new Baron and Baroness, or Baron and Baron, or Baroness and Baroness, or whatever it's going to be?
Coronet.
Thank you.
That way it's not gendered. We've put the call out. I think the deadline for people to put their names in is going to be our December business meeting, which is the first Thursday of December. And then after that, our seneschal will work with the polling deputy to create the polling, and the polling should go out end of December, beginning of January, and we'll have about a month to return that. So I believe there will be at least 2 couples interested. There may be more than that I'm not aware of. So it should be a good run.
How long would they stay in power? In the mid realm, it's 5 years. So how long in the East Kingdom?
So the East, I think they now max us out. I'd have to reread the rules. It's been a little bit. I think they now max us out at 5. At the time that we were first writing our rules, the East was maxing us out at 6, but we can do less. So our charter says 3 years with the option of 2 more years.
And do they have to do that by a vote from the populace, or can they just say, yo, we want to stick on for 2 more years?
It has to be from the officers. So the officers have to say, yeah, we're okay with them staying. It doesn't have to be the populace.
And you're the seneschal too now of this group.
No, I
Not
stepped
anymore?
down.
Okay.
I did my 2 years. I stepped down. And James is now our seneschal, which is great. He's one of our fencers, and I was excited to have him come into the role.
So what was it like for you being seneschal during COVID?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, everything shut down. We had so many plans, and we were trying to push towards becoming a barony, and then everything shut down. And people were upset and scared, and we started running that. We called it Sunday Brunch with Hartshorndale, our little Zoom session. And we had a lot of people coming on to that just wanted to talk. And then we ended up doing this thing where some people really wanted to talk about the pandemic and some people really wanted to hear nothing about it. So we would stay on for 2 hours, and 1 hour would be no pandemic talk and the other hour would be pandemic talk.
Wow.
So we did that for a while, and eventually we kind of just came down to a core group, and people talk about whatever they want to, but that has really been a good thing. We ran in our group the first crown tourney coming out of the pandemic, which was held in the summer instead of the spring, because we couldn't, the pandemic wouldn't let things open up enough in the spring to do it. So that was interesting because trying to figure out exactly what the guidelines were going to be leading up to it. And we had a very short period of time to do all of that. I think we had about a month from the time they accepted the bid to put the event on. So that was interesting too. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about that. We talked, oh, so is it a shell barony or is it, we should explain what a shell barony is. So where I live, it's the barony of Brendoken, and the barony of Brendoken is a shell barony, and that inside our barony are four different marches, four different separate groups. So the barony encompasses all four groups. So all four groups are independent, their own little group. They're just part of the barony. So by your look, I'm assuming, no, you're not a shell barony.
No, no, at least not to start with. Um, Bicale has a subordinate group, but I don't, Bicale also has land that is, so they wouldn't even be a shell from the way you're describing it because they have land that is Bicale proper. We would not start off with any subordinate groups. We would start off just as our own. That's not to say we wouldn't at some point have them. But to start with, we would not have any subordinate groups.
So one of the things that I know, because the barony of Brendoken, I was here when I was here in the mid realm when it first started becoming into being. And one of the things that was really important was for all of the people who were part of the launching of the barony of Brendoken that nobody put in their names in the hat to become the coronets. So do you have interest in a few years in throwing your name in the hat maybe down the road?
I have told people in my group that I might have an interest, but I am debating it right up until I haven't decided. Um, I go back and round, and we don't have anything that says that I can't throw my hat in now. So I could
Okay.
do it even with this first one. I'm not certain.
Yeah, it's a hard, and it's funny. It's not funny. It's sad, but so many people come out of being Baron and Baroness either stronger or everything is destroyed. There's been divorces and couples ending everything, and even couples that weren't related that took the job had problems. So, it seems to be a real test of character to run a barony as the folks in charge of it. Um,
That
but
doesn't
uh,
surprise me.
but I'm also saying you seem like a pretty strong-willed lady. I bet you could do it.
I guess so.
I, I think you could. Um, okay, so I remembered my other questions about chatelaine. Can we go back to that real quick?
Mhm.
So two of them. One is not the fun question. So we'll start with the not fun question. The SCA has had some bad press.
Mhm.
When you look at the swastika debacle, when you look at what happened, quite a few years ago with the lawsuit. Does
Was
anything,
traveling
any of
still
our,
while that was finishing up.
oh wow, oh wow.
I was Kingdom when that lawsuit was finishing.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
I
Um,
felt worse for the seneschal. She had the brunt of it.
not and I have friends who were affected personally by it too. So it just was the whole situation was, but there it is. We have bad press. We have, these things. There's other more recent things involving royalty, of course, that have come out. Does those things come up when new people are looking at us?
Not too much. Not too much. Um, if it does, then the general answer that I always gave was, you find this no matter where you go. We weed it out the best we can. That's why you're hearing about it, because we weed it out. Um, because we don't tolerate these things. They happen. They happen in the best of organizations. They happen in churches and Boy Scouts and maybe Girl Scouts. I'm not sure if I've heard much about Girl Scouts, but they happen in all these different places, and you just do the best you can to weed it out. And we've got good people and family-oriented people, and you know that's what we
Yeah.
do.
I mean, that's just one of the not fun parts of your job is having to deal with
Right.
that sort of stuff. And are you, as Chatelaine, does the Chatelaine deal with the press? I mean, now things have changed because we have media officers, but back
Right.
then we didn't. So were you the one who usually was talking to reporters that were coming to your demos and stuff?
So media officers were the brand new thing when I was Kingdom Chatelaine. And there was a Kingdom media officer, which there still is, of course. But the Chatelaine or the Seneschal were the two people designated to speak to the press should the press just show up at something. Those were the two people who were, so any other group member was supposed to refer, like if somebody from the press had shown up. And we did actually, our group was covered by the Philadelphia Inquirer. Oh, I guess it was while I was still local Chatelaine, 2008, maybe thereabouts, 2007 or 8. And so there was this whole article done, and they wanted pictures of a guy fighting in armor, and they wanted pictures of a lady and whatnot. And his wife didn't want any parts of it. So I ended up being in the pictures with him and his little girl. So it was fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so one of the things that we hear a lot is new people are the future, and you even said that in your
Mhm.
bio. How do we, because we are getting older and we're not getting the just the sheer numbers that we got when you and I started in the SCA, right? What are we doing and what else can we do to get the younger generation interested in the SCA?
See, that's a tough one. I think that that question is best answered by the younger generation, but I think that a huge piece of it is the ones that we do have that are young need to be moving into the officer positions, and they need to be attracting their friends, and they need to be the face of the SCA. They need to be the front of the demos. They need to be the front of what other young people see. Because if a person is looking at joining an organization and they see a whole bunch of people of a certain age group, whether it's my age or whether it's a 20 something's age, they're going to determine whether or not they fit based on what they're looking at. So, and I think that that's part of why we got the one young newcomer from that 4-H demo, because we had a bunch of young people running that demo,
When you say young, how young were they?
mid 20s.
Great. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's interesting because, in so many cases now there's third generations of Scadians
Mhm.
coming along and they can be the ones to really welcome people with all the experience in the world. My eldest was raised in the SCA. My youngest doesn't like the SCA, but my eldest loves the SCA and is doing their best to just make the SCA their own. It's to the point where Rowan does Commedia, my Rowan, not Row
Mhm.
Dude. Rowan does Commedia dell'arte, and although I'm a theater person, I don't do Commedia because that's my Rowan's, that's their world, and I don't ever want to
Mhm.
interlope on their world.
Right.
So what can we do, I guess, is what I'm saying, to get these second and third generations more involved in doing the work and helping us get new members?
Well, I mean, the best I guess I can say is to use an example. We have a young man in our group, and he started out just before the pandemic and managed to stay with us at the beginning of the pandemic. And you just, whenever he had an idea, you really have to stop and listen. And not just say, oh, well, you're the newcomer, you don't know anything, because that doesn't help anybody. I
Right,
mean, you have to stop and listen. You have to hear what he's saying. And if it's a good idea, you need to tell him it's a good idea. Let's make that happen. And then as he matures a little bit in the group and gets a little bit more, because he's been in now for 3 years, I guess. Say, from when I was seneschal, I think you would make an awfully good this officer. And he looked at it and he said, yeah, I'd be willing to try that. And now he's doing those things. So I think it's also tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, I think you'd be good at this, and making them feel good about the things that they have to offer, rather than making them feel like we've got it all set and we don't need them, because that's not true. We do need them.
right, right. And this is turning into the Zoph conversation with Allison versus interviewing, I'm sorry. But one of the things that I learned when I founded the Known World Players is I was searching for a Laurel and just I wanted to be a Laurel so bad. And it wasn't until I gave up the Known World Players, then I got my Laurel a year later. And
Uh-huh.
so one of the biggest things that I tell people all the time is you have to give it up. You have to be willing to give it up. You
Hmm.
can't hold the cookies all on your own. You have to be willing to say, whether you're a peer or not, it doesn't matter. It's somebody else's time to do a
Right.
thing. Even if I
Right.
love doing the thing, I need to let other people do the thing too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that my Rowan, Row dude,
Yes,
that
I'm
he
gonna
has
slowly, the
said to.
entire East Kingdom will call him Row Dude. My goal. That's my goal.
So that's something that he also has talked about, is making sure that you give things up. So that's definitely something that's important. And I think that you have to time it though. I mean, there was you mentioned in the bio that I ran that event Nova Scola. I ran that for 3 years, and I was told by the then seneschal that some I needed to give that up. So I did, and it died. And it's only just now coming back because somebody else is now running it, but that it died 10 years ago and now it's coming back. So she didn't tell me that I should give it up based on somebody else maybe having a good idea for it or there being somebody in the wings. She just thought that it was time for somebody else to start thinking about it. So I don't know. You have to time things. I think
Yeah.
that looking at the people who are up and coming in our group and saying, hey, did you think about doing this? Why don't you consider that? I think you'd be really good at this. I think that that's a good thing. And then stepping back and letting them do it. If that's what they're interested in. And if they're not interested in it, then helping them find other things that they are interested in. Um, and I think that the other thing is to, one of the things back with the shadowing conversation is that it's important to keep including people. If you've got somebody new, invite them to sit at your table. Say, hey, I don't know if anybody's ever explained this part of fighting to you. Let me, if you don't already know what this is, I'd be happy to chat with you about it, or whatever the topic might be. Let me explain. If you've never been to Penzic, let me explain Penzic nightlife, if it's an appropriate conversation, that is, you know. So I think that taking people aside, just topic oriented, and talking with them and helping them see things more fully is also important, rather than kind of leaving them out in the cold until they ask a question. Because I had so many newcomers when I was Kingdom specifically, because then they would email me and they would say, I'm not fitting in. Nobody talks to me. I don't know what to do. And I mean, I could get in touch with the local chatelaines, but I also would tell the newcomer different things that they could do to get themselves involved as well. And a lot of times it was finding small groups and helping in the kitchen, because everybody talks to everybody in the kitchen.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but I know this one person who did that, but people were very happy fulfilling a role in the kitchen, and this newcomer pushed them out
oh,
and just took over what they were doing, and it was their joy.
oh,
And so, at the same time, make sure that there's room, is what I'm saying. Make
yeah,
sure that there's
yeah,
a role for you where you're not, hurting someone else who's filling a role.
right,
And this
right.
wasn't a newcomer to the SCA. They were just a newcomer to the area.
Okay.
So I should say that they should have known better. So God, there's so much stuff I want to talk about. Okay, and we have like 20 minutes left. So, okay. So, Gothic fitted dress.
Hmm.
What is it? What is a Gothic fitted dress?
That is the tight fitting 14th century dress that you see a lot. If you see ladies in particular, wearing a tight fitted laced or buttoned dress, that is usually going to be the Gothic fitted dress. And it's got a very full skirt and long sleeves. And sometimes the sleeves go down over the hands a bit. Um, and it's really a beautiful style. And I learned about it from let me see if I can remember her SCA name. Uh, she is a Laurel, and I'm remembering her, Marcella. Thank you. Mistress Marcella. I'm remembering her real life name and not her SCA name. I
Darn
apologize for that.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So Mistress Marcella and Master Rashid, you might have known Rashid if you lived in this area at one
I
point.
did, yes.
Um, and Mathilde, who lives in Colorado now. So they were my primary teachers. And Marcella is really well known for it because she has a website that people still point to when they're trying to learn the Gothic fitted dress. I don't do everything exactly the way she did, but it's a beautiful dress. I think it makes any female figure look very nice. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. I've taught lots of classes on it. I've fitted lots of different ladies of different sizes. I find actually the very tiny people the hardest to fit, as amusing that as that might be. I think they're a lot more difficult actually to fit.
Huh. Now, is that what's also called the Code Hardy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I used to have one. I'd love another one. But that's not my persona, and I've gotten really deep into the deep dive of Hungarian 9th century. So what is that? But you also explore other personas, other time periods, I should say. But is most of your garb closet made up of, you called them GFDs?
Yeah. So if the weather permits and I can wear the layers, that's what I will wear. If it is hot and I need looser fitting clothing, then I will go to something else like Viking or sometimes even saris for the Mughal era, the 15th century
Oh,
Mughal.
so that's what that is, because that's what I was going to ask you. What is that?
Saris, Indian. So I have
Okay.
so many pearls. I have so many pearls for wearing those, just draping pearls everywhere.
Nice. I
Fun.
know. It's funny that we've never like actually talked before this. Like, how do we not know each other?
I know we really should.
We
We've
really
got
should, but
people
now
in
we do.
common.
Now we do. So okay, so what else? You love to embroider, especially using gold thread.
Hmm.
What is it about? See, I can't do it. My eyesight's too bad. So what is it about embroidery that you love?
Making art, I guess. I don't know if you can see it, but here's some of what I do.
Wow, look at that. Oh, you got a dragon, you little mid-realmer in disguise.
It's a blue dragon though. Funny story about the mid-realm dragon. My significant other, his friends live out closer to Penzic than we do. They live in Bellefonte, PA, so maybe 2.5 hours from Penzic versus our 6 hours. And one year for Christmas, after they knew he was playing in the SCA, they bought him a shirt, and it was a mid-realm shirt.
Does he wear it
So
though?
you will see him on yeah, he'll wear it. He'll wear it, especially land grab weekend at Penzic. He wears it. He gets such a kick out of it.
That's awesome. See, we're all one. We're all one.
Yeah.
So what else are you into in the arts and sciences? I didn't dive deeply into that paragraph of your
So
impressive
I'm not
bio.
really terribly good at it, but I do like to do some tablet weaving. I just need to, I've got a lot of room for improvement on that. I could use some good teachers, and I know some people who could teach me, but yeah, got a lot of room for improvement there. And the costuming and the embroidery are the two biggies. I finger loop braiding, and I've made the aglets for the end of the finger loop braids, things like that. So narrow work, I guess you would include with that. But
What
the
kind of work?
embroidery, narrow work, which is
What's
where you're
narrow
making
work?
the finger loop braids or the little tablet woven edges and things like that. This, no, I didn't do that on this one. So tablet weaving can be used as an edge treatment too. So I have done that. I don't think the camera is going to pick this up, but this edge
No, it
sheet,
does. Yeah.
that is tablet woven.
What?
Yeah, that's 4 cards with a thin silk thread. And the point of it is that as the buttons pull, that edge will keep it from pulling all the way through. It's in the Museum of London books where they've got the button edge the whole of the button edge, tablet woven to keep the buttons from pulling all the way through.
So, are you part of the Tudor Tailor group? Are you part of them? Because their book is just coming out, and my friend Harley was just over in England
I have all of the
speaking about
books.
all of this.
I
So,
have
did
all
you?
of the books. I am so excited about those books. They're great.
So they posted, the Tudor Tailor folks posted today that they had a fashion archaeologist, and they gave her a garment, and they were like, "What is this thing?" And so she walked them through the process of discovering what it turned out to be a farthingale
Farthingale?
sleeve, like
Okay.
the first sleeve, and then they didn't have time to do discussion about the outer sleeve. But I was like, they wore two sleeves. Wait a minute, they didn't wear like a chemise and then the outfit over it with the sleeves that you tied on. No, even the undersleeve was tied. It was very
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. So Tudor
It is
Tailor,
fascinating.
and their new book is pre-order. Is it pre-order right now? Anyway, I mean, I just think that it's a great resource for Scadians that are into late period costuming.
Mm-hmm. Um, Agatha the Wanderer, Mistress Agatha, now I'm gonna, Rachel Case is her real life name. She did a lot of research with a archaeologist in Europe on the Lengberg finds, the medieval bras. And it is fascinating to hear her talk about it and all the cool work that she has done in it. She comes at it from the living history perspective from the SCA. And then she works with two other people. The primary person is an archaeologist in Europe. And so they've pulled these pieces of fabric out of an attic in a castle in Lengberg, Germany. And they have figured out through recreating them what they are. And they've got, oh goodness, words escape me. Type of weaving that is like a finger type of weaving. Totally words are escaping me. They use sticks. That doesn't help. Anyway,
I have
she
no idea.
made these garments with this type of inset in there, and they thought one of them that turned out to be a headpiece was a bra initially, because they did have other bras. They found several bras, they found several underpants. They've got all this cool stuff. And Rachel Case, who's was an Easterner, she just relocated actually within the last few months out west. But she has done so much research on that, and it's just amazing. I love listening to her speak. I
I
absolutely love listening to her.
She did, there was like a Laurel Prize tourney out in Boston, goodness gracious, many years ago, and there was somebody who had an entry that was a bra.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. It was cracking me up because I took all these pictures of all these entries, and the bra had the most likes, the most
Uh-huh.
comments. Like it was like all of a
Yep.
sudden the geek came out and they went crazy over the bra and the
Yep.
work, and they were like, take more pictures. I was like, it's over. I'm
Yes.
like back at my friend's house. I can't, but what is it about, you know, finds like that get mega geek, those discoveries that Scadians love so much? What is it about it?
Well, underwear with women is a huge thing. It just really is. Like there's not a whole lot of written word on whether or not women had underwear. We know that they passed down from, when they died, there were gowns given away in their wills and things like that, and sleeves given away and headpieces given away and whatnot in their wills. We've got lots of illuminations and other artwork showing their outer clothing. We've got artwork showing a chemise. We don't have a whole lot of stuff that we're sure shows whether or not they're wearing underwear or bras of some sort. So to find something that we can absolutely say for sure is a bra, there were written things about breast bags, and we think that that's the term that they used for bras, breast bags. You like that term?
That's
Isn't it
great
funny?
because they
Mhm.
are bags already. But anyway,
Yep, they are.
that's fascinating. So I wanted to touch on one more thing before we get to the last question, and that was heraldry.
Mhm,
One of the interests you have still is heraldry,
mhm.
and you know, is it? the research of the heraldry, or is it court heraldry, or is it both for you?
So I've only tried my hand at court heraldry once, and that was with Rowan. And he was a wonderful teacher, and I had such a great day. And I have photos of me standing up there helping with that, and I would love to do more of that. But the heraldry I've done and I enjoy is also the research and the picture heraldry in particular. I've done names. I'm not as good at names. I think because there's just so many possible languages. The pictures are easier, the rules are more defined. You either are allowed to do that or not, and there's either a conflict or there isn't, and you can submit it, and maybe somebody who's better at searching than I am will find a conflict that I didn't find, and then it gets returned, and then you have to find something to fix it. But there's so many heralds that are out there to even help young heralds that are less knowledgeable than others. I mean, it's a great community, first of all. Um, but it's also a lot of fun. And I love all the different possible combinations in the beasties. And I like to draw. So I drew a really cool griffin for a friend one time, and that is registered now. So I
Nice.
love
Yeah.
that griffin.
Um, so what's next for you in the SCA? I mean, like it seems like you've conquered many things. You've done so many things. What is your next goal?
I don't know. I'm really kind of a little bit up in the air. I mean, there are other officer positions I would not mind holding eventually. I go back and forth with maybe wanting to be the MOAS, the Arts and Sciences, maybe MOL, learning more about what goes on in the fighting field. I watch the fighting. I have been I've had Baron Talon fight for me a number of crown tourneys. So I've been his consort. His wife and I are very good friends. She does not want to be the consort. So he fights for me. Um, and I wouldn't mind learning more about just how the tourneys are run and whatnot, because I still get a little bit confused about that. And if I work the MOL tables, I would learn more about that. And I've got lots of good friends who could teach me that. So that could be a fun outlet. I don't, I am jury's out as to what I want to do, whether or not I want to run for the coronet. So that's a possibility too. I have to think more on that. Um, I don't know. Just there's a lot of options out there.
I love your
Work more on my
enthusiasm.
arts.
Yeah. Oh, you are so awesome. I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk tonight. So the last question that every guest gets asked, what can the SCA do better?
Yeah, so that's a tough one now, isn't it? Um, I have listened to some of your other shows and some of what the other people have to say. I think the SCA tries to function like the small organization that it was, and it's a much bigger organization. And I don't know what they need to do to catch up. I think one of the big things would be something to do with our websites, because that is where we get people find us there. And our websites are being handled by a lot of people who are very amateur, and there are some very good amateurs. Um, and some of the people maybe do that. I think in our kingdom, we've had some people who are professional and then are doing it for the kingdom as well. So I think you do get some of that, but I think that we really need our websites to do a better job. And I don't know whether the SCA needs to, and I know we're not a rich organization, but whether they need to put some money towards that perhaps. And I know that probably seems like a strange answer, but I feel like we're a big organization that tries to function like a small organization, and we are all volunteer. And I feel like that would be a start. I'm not quite sure what else out there. I think everybody, the general answer of everybody could always try to be kinder to each other. Um, I think that most of us aim for that. Um, I think everybody could try to be friendlier. I think there's a lot of people who um, don't realize, they don't notice that maybe it's a good thing to say hello to somebody that they don't know. They just don't even realize that that's a thing. Um, but I don't know how that would change. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that because I think that's individual and not organizational. So
Yeah. You know, my tip that I tell people, the biggest smile, and I have a really big smile, but my biggest smile is saved for the newest people at events. And you can always tell. You can always tell because they're running around in their crushed velvet, you know, and I give them the biggest smile. And I'm actually shy. I'm not into, I don't do well in those kind of situations, but I can at least give them a smile and let them know somebody sees them, notices them, and that I think they're cool and they're welcome. So that's my
yeah,
one, that's the Zof tip of the day.
it's
Just
a great tip.
give a smile to the new people because they really love it. I'm not good at talking to them one on one. I don't do good in those situations. So smile, smile more. Um,
A lot more. Yep.
okay. So thank you so much for being my guest. I mean, this has really been such a wonderful 52 minutes chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This has been fun.
We'll have to do it again. We'll have to do a gothic fitted dress panel. How about that? We'll do, yeah, that would
Sure.
be cool. Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. All right. You have been watching Simply Scadian, no title required. This is Oph with my guest, Alison Woodhalle. I don't know who our guest in 2 weeks will be. You're all going to be as surprised as me. Yay! Don't forget, we have a form on our website to suggest guests or send me a message on Facebook. Simply Scadian, just search for us on Facebook and you'll find us. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.